Hey guys, tonight we walk the edge of memory and return to a place where the veil between breath and earth grows thin. The path is soft beneath your feet, made of old leaves and older promises. The trees here don't just grow, they remember. Mist clings to your ankles like forgotten lullabies. Fireflies drift like tiny lanterns, blinking slowly, guiding you forward. Somewhere far behind you, the world of time and teeth and clocks has already vanished. You didn't hear the door close, but you know it did. You're not really supposed to be here. Or maybe you are. Depends who you ask. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And if you're listening late at night, tell me where you're tuning in from. I love knowing where all our quiet travelers come from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk under a sky that doesn't have stars, just drifting lights that feel like they've always been watching. Not in a creepy way, more like the way an elder watches a grandchild touch the sacred river for the first time. The path beneath your feet glows faintly, like memory left behind. Every step feels like walking further inward, not forward. You smell moss, sweet rot, and something faintly metallic. Maybe rain that hasn't fallen yet. They say in some places, the dead return to forests because the forest is the only thing ancient enough to speak their language. That's a mainstream belief in many indigenous cultures, that the trees hold on to parts of the soul, helping it unravel slowly like thread in the wind. But tonight's forest is older than culture. It's not sacred because someone told it to be. It just is, and you're not scared, just curious. Your body isn't exactly gone yet. You still feel the weight of your limbs, but lighter, like sleep sitting on your skin. If you turned around, maybe you'd see your body still lying in that hospice bed, or on that temple floor, or under the blue tarp in the rain. But you don't turn. Not yet. A little spirit scampers across your path. It's shaped like a fox, but made of smoke and bone. It nods at you, respectfully. That's the funny thing about this place. Even the strange things have good manners. You hear a whisper, not from your ears, but from the trees themselves. They're welcoming you. Not with words exactly, but with pressure and warmth and scent. Like the way fire welcomes wood, some traditions suggest this is the moment when the soul decides if it wants to move on or linger. That choice may not even be conscious. It might happen in the place under your thoughts, the part of you that knows how to breathe without being taught. And in this forest, the choice feels soft, not like a door slamming shut, but like a curtain slowly falling. Somewhere far ahead, you notice a slow movement in the branches. A figure, human-shaped, but larger, rounder, covered in vines and glowing sap. Watching, not approaching. One of the keepers, maybe. The ones who know which paths lead forward and which ones just curve forever in gentle loops. In the Inca traditions, they believed that sacred stones, huacas, held spirits of the dead. Not imprisoned, just comfortable, anchored, in places where the earth's memory was strong. Stones were more than objects. They were companions, guardians. Some were shaped into figures. Others were just stones, but humming with presence. People visited them to whisper news of the living. And sometimes, to ask permission. You wonder if one of these stones waits up ahead. Maybe it's shaped like you. Maybe it's already humming with your story. Maybe your name is already carved into it, not with tools, but with longing. Scholars still debate whether the Inca truly believed the spirit entered the stone, or if the stone was a symbol, like a photograph, or a candle flickering for the departed. But you, standing here, feel it's not either or. The soul doesn't always settle in one place. It lingers like humidity. It dances like dust in a sunbeam. It anchors like roots in dark soil. Your feet crunch on something. You look down. Pine needles? No, not quite. They're made of soft paper. Hundreds of handwritten notes folded into needles. As you walk, they whisper open, revealing words not meant for you. Love letters, apologies, recipes, names. You wonder if this path will remember your name when you're done walking it. Suddenly, a breeze. Not cold, not warm, just present. It moves through you like a question you haven't asked yet. And you realize you've stopped noticing time. Your heartbeat, if it still exists, has blended with the wind and the footsteps of whatever creature padded past you moments ago. You pause at a fork in the trail. One path slopes downward into shadow and roots. The other rises gently toward faint light. You don't need to choose yet. This forest doesn't demand decisions, it offers invitations. Like a dream that shifts depending on what part of you is most awake. In the distance, you hear a bell. Not the clanging kind, but one that sounds like it's been buried underground for 100 years and just now remembered how to ring. It echoes without urgency. You don't need to follow it, but you want to. The fox thing is back. It's watching you from a nearby stump. This time, it has no eyes, just empty space filled with stars. It tilts its head, then darts away, leaving behind a feather. You pick it up. It's heavier than it looks. Something tells you to hold on to it. The path ahead narrows, curving like a question mark. You follow. The clouds hang low tonight, almost within reach. You walk beneath them, though you don't quite walk. You drift gently, as if the ground is merely a memory beneath your steps. The trees have thinned, and the wind hums a low and sacred note. Ahead, a slope rises. Not a mountain, not a hill, but something ancient, something patient. This is where the birds wait. You don't yet understand what it means to offer your body to the wind, but the stones here remember it. They have witnessed the silent generosity of sky burials, where the body becomes a gift and the soul becomes air. You approach a circle of flat stones, weathered, warm despite the breeze. Once, this place was a platform. Bones were placed here, not buried, not burned, just laid beneath the endless blue. It was believed the soul could only rise if the flesh was no longer clinging to earth. And who better to carry the soul than the birds, those feathered priests of the sky? Some traditions suggest that each bone, once cleaned by wind and wing, held a note of the soul's original song. If a loved one leaned close, very close, they might hear it. A lullaby buried in calcium, a farewell in marrow. You kneel beside the platform. The air carries the faint scent of stone and sage. You sense that someone else has been here. Not recently, not physically. But devotion leaves its trace. It lingers like warmth in the hollow of a seat just vacated. It is not gruesome here. There is no violence, no despair, just quiet transformation. A slow unwinding, the kind of death that knows it is not an ending but a release. You lie back on the stone just for a moment. The wind brushes your cheeks like feathers. You imagine the sky opening, not as heaven, but as a great listening ear. Somewhere above, the birds begin to gather. They don't flap. They don't caw. They simply are, like sentinels waiting to lift something light. In Tibetan Buddhism, sky burials are a sacred act of generosity, returning the body to nature so that other beings may live. Death, in this context, is not solitary. It is communal. You do not rot in a coffin. You feed the cycle. The vulture does not devour you. It delivers you. And yet, scholars still debate whether the practice began as religious devotion or as necessity. High in the Himalayas, with little soil and less wood, burial and cremation were luxuries. Practicality and holiness, it seems, are not always separate. You open your hands. The sky feels endless here. You think about bones, your own perhaps. You imagine each one humming with some memory you thought forgotten. A laugh, a song, the sound of someone saying your name when you were very small. A whisper stirs the grass beside you. You turn slowly. There's nothing there, but something remains. You wonder if your own bones will sing. Not far from this skybound altar, there's another tale. Less known, more peculiar. In parts of ancient Mongolia, families would bury bones in hollowed-out trees and mark them with colored strings. Red for passion, blue for wisdom. yellow for longing. Sometimes, when the wind was just right, they said the trees would whistle a specific tune. Each tune was different. Each one belonged to a person now gone. And so, when someone wandered lost in grief, they'd walk the forest. They'd pause beneath the trees and listen. If the tree sang your mother's song, you'd know she was near. And you'd sit with her. Maybe cry a little. Maybe smile. Tonight, the trees around you are quiet. But not empty. There's a stillness that isn't silence. It's waiting, listening, like the earth itself is humming something soft. A leaf drifts down and brushes your face. You don't flinch. Instead, you whisper, "Thank you." And though nothing answers, everything does. You rise slowly. Your knees don't creak here. There's no pain in this place. Only remembrance. Only the soft sensation that you are not lost. Only becoming. You begin to walk again, each step guided by something ancient. The path curves toward the next ritual, one of fire, of ashes, of breath, returning to breath. But before you go, you turn back one last time to the bones and the birds. You whisper a song you don't remember learning, and the wind carries it skyward. Section 3. You walk through an air made of memory. It is not thick or heavy, but light, like breath held long ago and exhaled only now. Around you, the forest is older than history, and its trees lean inward like monks in prayer. The path beneath your feet is soft, not with soil, but with time. The footfall of the departed, thousands of years pressing gently into the ground. You carry no name here, only feeling. The air hums softly with a music you cannot place, half lullaby, half wind. Somewhere deep inside it, you recognize the tone of longing. Not sorrow, but a slow, gentle hunger. The kind that asks not for food, but for a return to something forgotten. And then, in the hush, you see it. A low stone wall, half buried in moss, with carvings almost worn smooth. Shapes, spirals, faces. You kneel before it, and as your fingers brush the grooves, it begins to warm. Some traditions suggest these stones were not markers for the dead, but vessels for memory itself. In the ancient Andean highlands, it is said that spirit guardians were not sent away but asked to stay, to linger in rock, to keep the world steady. These weren't spirits of fear or wrath, they were watchers, listeners. The Inca called them huacas, sacred places or objects inhabited by living spirits. Some were mountains, some were springs, some were stones worn by centuries of offerings. To place a banana or a coin at the foot of a huaca was not superstition. It was relationship. One whispered like a child to a grandparent who had never left. You press your hand against the stone. It is silent, but not empty. Stories still echo here. Some scholars still debate whether these sites truly housed spirits, or whether the people simply poured their grief into something solid. But when the night falls over the Andes, when the mist curls through the valleys and you are alone with a boulder the size of a sleeping god, it is hard not to believe that someone is listening. You rise. The forest doesn't part for you, but it accepts you. That is enough. And with every step forward, the moss beneath your feet softens even further, as if memory itself is guiding you deeper into what once was, and maybe still is. Word count: 1016. Section 4. You follow the slope upward. It's not steep, not sharp, just a rise, as if the earth is inhaling beneath you. The trees grow thinner here, but they seem older still. Their bark bears scars, not from time, but from touch. Ribbons tied decades ago, burn marks where candles once stood, symbols etched not for art, but for passage. You are entering what the elders might have called a memory path. Not a trail to get somewhere, but one you walk to remember where you've been. Ahead, a clearing bathed in soft gold. You arrive at what looks like a circle of stones, worn smooth by centuries of human feet and something more. In the center, a tree not taller than the others, but different. You feel it before you see it clearly. Its bark peels in patterns. It hums without sound. Some traditions suggest certain trees are chosen by spirits for their stillness, their patience, their promise not to speak, but to hold. This tree, this center point, may once have held bones beneath its roots. Offerings. Cloth dyed with insect wings. Tiny wooden dolls carved with exaggerated smiles to confuse evil. In the Inca worldview, the soul was not a straight beam that shot from life to afterlife. It spiraled. It hesitated. It consulted the trees. Scholars still debate whether these sacred groves were burial sites or memory stations. But folklore tells us that when someone died, you carried part of them here, not just physically, but in sound. You whispered their name to a tree. And the tree, they said, kept it. You move closer. The tree's trunk has grown over a face. A human face, maybe. Maybe not. It is shaped by weather, by moss, by belief. You reach out, and as your palm rests upon the bark, you feel a rhythm, not a heartbeat, not quite, but something nearby. It is boredom, not human boredom, but spirit boredom. The kind of waiting that knows it has no end. You sit beside the tree. You offer your silence. And something in the hush around you thanks you for remembering to be quiet. To word count, 1031. Awaiting, continue. The red thread tightens gently around your finger, snug but not painful. It pulses once, warm, and then begins to tug forward. You follow, your steps lighter now, the air thinner. The mist around you lifts like a curtain, revealing a descent. A gentle slope paved with stones slick with dew and history. The thread guides you into darkness, but not absence. No, this is the rich dark, the kind that comes with candles, with incense, with secrets. Beneath your feet, the stones grow older. Each one bears a carving, a name, a date, a symbol, a sun, a star, a weeping eye. Some are too worn to read, like memories rubbed thin by the centuries. You are entering the catacombs of Kiev. Not the real ones, those carved by monks beneath the lavra. These are older, deeper, the ones you only find in dreams or at the edge of a soul's last question. The red thread leads you through archways so low you must bow your head. The walls breathe cold and wet, and from deep within, you hear chanting. Not ominous, soft, steady. A language so old it vibrates through your spine rather than your ears. The catacombs glow faintly now, not from torches, but from the walls themselves. A soft bioluminescence, as though the very air remembers being loved once. You come to a chamber. At its center, a loom, ancient. Carved from dark wood and ivory bone, threads hang from it, tangled, shimmering in red, gold, and black. And sitting beside it is a monk, or something that once was. His face is shadowed by a deep hood. His hands are skeletal but swift. They move across the loom in a rhythm both chaotic and precise. You realize he's weaving the thread you're holding. And not just yours. Threads stretch out from him in every direction. Into the walls, into the ceiling, through the earth. Billions, each one tied to a soul. He does not look up, but you hear his voice in your chest. You followed it, you nod. It remembers everything, he says, even when you do not. He pulls on one thread. A memory flickers behind your eyes. You, kneeling beside a fire, whispering your brother's name into the smoke. He pulls another. You, in a soldier's coat, weeping over a letter too soaked in blood to read. You gasp. You've worn many names, the monk says. But the thread remembers the soul, not the mask. He gestures to the loom. This is the red thread of Kiev. A folk belief once whispered in secret, that a single thread ties each soul to its ancestors, weaving through lifetimes, through pain and joy, through war and peace. Some say it grows brighter with love. Others say it only reveals itself when you're ready to forgive yourself. You ask what happens if the thread is cut. He stops weaving. The chamber stills. He turns toward you. If you cut the thread, you forget everything, even the reason you ever wanted to remember. And then, slowly, he resumes. You step closer. One of the threads pulses, not yours. Someone else's. You touch it. Suddenly, you're inside another life. A woman's. Your hands are chapped. Your belly is round with life. You're hiding in a cellar while bombs fall above. A child cries in your arms, and you press your lips to her forehead and whisper, "Just a little longer, moja zvezdochka." And then, back. The thread glows faintly, still vibrating with that love. She lived, the monk says. You did not. You blink. She was me? Part of you, he replies. You kneel before the loom. What do I do with all of it, you ask? The war outside is just a reflection, he says gently. The true war is whether your spirit chooses to remember or to remain numb. He places a spool of red thread in your palm. Follow it upward, he says. There's more waiting. He fades into the dark. And the loom begins to unravel behind you, threads curling back into the walls like retreating vines. You rise. The red thread tightens again, gently pulling you forward. As you walk, the path changes. No longer stone. Now it's tapestry. Woven from countless colors, stories beneath your feet. With each step, images bloom. A soldier embracing his mother, a peasant bearing bread in the snow for strangers, lovers dancing in a ruined church. You pass beneath a stone arch. Carved into its surface is the trident of Ukraine, Trizub, intertwined with a double-headed eagle, the symbol of old Russia. They do not fight here. They simply exist side by side, like fossils buried in the same sediment. Some scholars debate whether such images ever truly existed together in any shared history. But here, in this soul space, truth isn't history. It's what the spirit remembers when no one is watching. You come to the surface again. A courtyard, overgrown, cracked, wild with vines. At its center, a statue of a woman, head bowed, eyes closed. In her hands, a severed thread. You approach, and her eyes open, slowly. They are your eyes. She smiles faintly. You came back, she says. You realize she is the version of you who once gave up. And yet here she stands, whole again. I thought no one would ever remember who I was, she says. You reach out, tie the thread in her hands to yours, and for a moment, your souls merge. One heartbeat, one sorrow. One red line drawn across time like a whisper. The statue becomes light. The courtyard dissolves, and the thread pulls once more into a tunnel of stars. A light mist weaves through the trees as you rise again, guided not by direction, but by curiosity. The path doesn't promise arrival, only continuation. Each step is soft, padded with the shedding of seasons long forgotten by calendars. You don't know where you are, and yet, you do. Your breath carries no fog. Your feet leave no print. Still, everything around you responds. A low rustle here, a slight shift in wind there. As if the forest isn't quite sure whether you're alive or not, and frankly, neither are you. You reach a slope edged with cairns, stacked stones, arranged carefully. Not piles, not accidents, intentional, measured. They resemble tiny watchtowers, each one humming quietly with purpose. In many Andean traditions, travelers added stones to cairns when crossing high passes, offerings to Apus, the mountain spirits, prayers for protection, tokens of presence. But here, in this death place where the line between body and breath has vanished, these cairns don't ask for protection. They offer memory. Each stone feels placed by someone who did not wish to forget. You pause at one cairn smaller than the others. A white stone at the top gleams faintly. You reach out and your fingers brush the surface. Smooth, warm, not warm like the sun, warm like being held. The stone remembers something. You're not sure what, but your heart aches in response. It's the ache of recognition without recollection, like hearing your name spoken in a language you've never learned. Scholars still debate whether the Inca believed these cairns were inhabited or merely symbolic, but symbols don't hum like this. And now a different sound. Faint, rhythmic, like breath through a reed, or a voice half wrapped in wind. You follow it, down a narrowing trail lined with tiny feathers and knotted strings, left behind by others who walked this way. You arrive at a pool. Still, mirror-like, not wide but infinite in depth. No ripples, no insects, just reflection. You kneel, you look into it, and you see, not your face, but someone watching you from within. Not threatening, not even unfamiliar, just waiting. Their eyes shimmer with ancient quiet. A fringe story from a village at the edge of the Andes tells of a soul who drowned, not in water, but in reflection. They stared into the sacred pool seeking answers, and the answers unspooled them like thread. When others found the body, the eyes were open but empty, as if what once looked out now looked in. You glance away. The forest accepts your choice. Some traditions suggest that this pool only reflects memory. Not your past, but the past. And if you stare too long, you forget which parts were yours. Instead, you close your eyes, and you remember the sound of footsteps in soft dirt. You remember the scent of bread, though no bread ever existed here. You remember that time you meant to say something kind, but chose silence instead. Even that is still breathing here. Death doesn't erase. It distills. You rise again, not because you found an answer, but because you found stillness, and it's time to carry it. Up ahead, a wall of rock covered in ochre spirals and handprints. The handprints are small, almost childlike, and faded from centuries of wind, but they linger, like ghosts trying to say, I was here, and I cared enough to press my soul into the stone. You raise your hand to one, not to match it, but to honor it, and you whisper, I see you. The whisper disappears, or maybe it's caught. Either way, it's no longer yours. And that feels right. You follow the next bend in the path, where moss glows faintly on the trunks like old starlight. A fox watches you from the edge of the trees, unmoving. Its eyes are moonlit, unreadable. Then it turns and disappears, as if to say, you're going the right way. You're not sure if the forest is shrinking or you're growing into it, but either way, you belong a little more than before. And the cairns, they continue. You add a stone of your own, not because you need protection, but because it feels good to be remembered by the earth. The path slips into silence again. Not emptiness, just the hush that follows when something sacred has passed through. The kind of stillness that hushes birds and bows trees. You breathe it in. It smells like cold bark and something sweet, like sap or slow time. You begin to notice how the forest breathes with you in long exhales that bend the grasses, then pause. Even without lungs, it feels alive in its own deliberate way. Up ahead, scattered on the forest floor like a broken constellation, are small cloth bundles tied with red twine. You kneel beside one. The fabric is worn, but you can still make out faint embroidered shapes. Mountains, a sun, and what looks like a figure dancing or praying. You don't open it. That doesn't feel like the point. In Quechua tradition, such bundles were called cuepas, offerings for the ancestors. Wrapped memories. Inside might be coca leaves, bits of food, or locks of hair. Some families buried them near sacred stones, believing that the spirit of the deceased could still taste, still smell, still feel gratitude through these small gifts. You pass another bundle, and then another. Some cradled in roots, Others nestled beside stone faces covered in lichen. Someone came through here, loving someone else enough to leave a fragment behind. Not a grave, a whisper. Some traditions suggest that these bundles don't just honor the dead, they anchor them, keep them from dissolving into the river of forgetting. That might be why the cloth is always tied shut, memory sealed inside, but still warm from the touch of those who grieve. You keep walking, careful not to disturb them. A squirrel darts past, then freezes. You freeze too. For a moment, the two of you study each other as if comparing lives. Then it vanishes in a flurry of brown and silence. You smile. The forest opens slightly and leads you to a clearing ringed with stone stools. Simple, round, carved into tree stumps. A fire once burned in the center, its charred heart still black and cracked. But there's no smoke now, only ash and the faint shape of footprints around it, half swallowed by moss. You sit. You don't know whose gathering this was, but you feel welcomed anyway. Like they left a place for you, knowing you'd pass this way eventually. The wind shifts. You smell smoke, though none exists. There's a story whispered through highland villages about a man who died during winter but never decayed. His family believed he was waiting for spring, so they sat with him each evening, reciting old songs and bringing him favorite foods. When spring came, he finally smiled and vanished. Some say this was magic. Others say it was love that refused to hurry. Scholars still debate whether stories like this were meant as literal truths or poetic comforts. But you're sitting in a ring of stones, and it feels like someone just stepped away to fetch tea. The sky above the trees begins to shift in color, blues turning to opals, then dusk violet. Not quite night, not quite day, just the in-between. You look at your hands. They shimmer faintly at the edges. You think, maybe you're becoming part of this place. Then voices, not loud, not even words, just tones, layered like soft waves. You close your eyes and listen. The melodies curl and uncurl, humming through the forest like a lullaby no one has sung in 1,000 years. And yet, you remember it. Not the lyrics, but the feeling of being sung to. That comfort of someone gently holding the world around you with sound. In many ancient communities, death wasn't met with silence, but song. Not for celebration, not for mourning, for accompaniment. In parts of the Andes, it's said that the Huaylas, spirit guides, appear when music is played with intention, that they come not to take, but to walk beside you, especially if you've forgotten the way. You open your eyes, there is no choir, but you feel less alone. The next trail leads upward, toward a ridge covered in flowering shrubs and honey-colored stones. A small stream trickles nearby, its sound like whispered memory. You stoop to drink, not because you're thirsty, but because the act feels sacred. The water is cool, and when it touches your lips, your body remembers things your mind cannot. A grandmother's laughter, rain on a thatched roof, the soft weight of a hand holding yours. Even in death, some parts of you refuse to vanish. You press your palm into the earth. It presses back. Then the wind tugs gently at your sleeve, like a child asking, "Shall we go?" And so you do. You leave behind the stone ring, the singing air, the bundles wrapped in thread, and time. But something comes with you. Not heavier, just more aware, like you've been gently rewritten by the forest, and the story isn't over. The wind carries you to a slope where the trees thin, and the sky opens like a bowl of soft fire. Distant peaks cradle the clouds like sleeping guardians. And just there, half buried in earth and moss, is the shape of a carved face. Stone lips, closed in a kind of amused silence. Eyes half-lidded, gazing down the mountain. You approach it slowly. The Inca called such stones huacas, sacred beings, not just objects. Some believed they were petrified ancestors. Others thought them gods disguised as granite, but all agreed they were alive in some way that trees and stars understood. You sit in front of this one, letting its presence wash over you like a slow tide. Its mouth almost seems to hum, not a sound you hear, but a vibration in your chest. It feels like waiting, or maybe remembering. There's an old story told high in the Andes about a woman who died during childbirth. Her family, in their grief, carved her likeness into a cliff so she could always watch over the valley. For years, travelers left flowers and fruit at her feet. And it's said that when a woman from the village passed away, her spirit stopped at that stone on her way to the stars, just to whisper thank you. You wonder if you're near such a place now. You reach out, your hand doesn't pass through the stone. It rests on its cool cheek, as if placing your palm on the face of time. In some versions of Inca belief, the soul doesn't travel far. It lingers close, held in mountain breezes, in rain, in the rustling of grass. The body might return to earth, but the spirit becomes part of the landscape's song. And so the world grows more conscious with every death. Scholars still debate whether these spirits were truly believed to reside in stone, or if it was poetic metaphor for remembrance. But your fingers feel something pulse beneath the stone's surface. And you don't need proof. A low, distant drumbeat echoes across the ridge. Not music exactly, more like the heart of the mountain reminding itself that it's awake. You follow the sound. Your path spirals downward, toward a terrace garden overtaken by wild lavender and hummingbirds. In the center is a small stone bench, cracked but dignified. You sit, and your weight presses it slightly deeper into the earth, as if the stone is happy to hold you for a while. A gentle rain begins, not falling, but rising, mist curling up from the soil, kissed by twilight. It coats your skin with memory. You think of a dream you once had, or maybe a moment from life. A long walk with someone who has no name in this realm, but whose presence now echoes like laughter in the leaves. You realize they aren't gone. They're watching you from the rain. There's a belief held in some Andean villages that when the rain falls without warning, it's the spirits washing the grief from someone's shoulders. Not punishing, not warning, just cleansing. The droplets trickle along your temples like slow tears, but you aren't crying. You're remembering. Not one life, not one death, but all of them. The rain stops. You rise. Another pathway reveals itself, lined with crumbling walls that once held back fields of maize and sacred potatoes. Here, your footsteps seem to awaken the ground. Grass tilts toward you. Pebbles roll gently from your way. It's possible that you're no longer walking on earth, but on memory, the terrain of a spirit who stayed long enough to shape the land into a mirror. You pause at a circular hollow in the stone wall. Inside is a bundle of feathers, condor and dove, wrapped in gold thread. You smile. In some traditions, feathers were left at sacred sites as invitations to the sky, messages for ancestors asking them to guide the newly departed. And if they accepted, the soul would be lifted by wind instead of dragged by gravity. You touch the feathers. The breeze rises. Something inside you rises too. Not like leaving, more like unfolding. You don't know what waits beyond this ridge, but suddenly, it doesn't matter. Because here, with the stone watching and the mist still warming your cheeks, you are exactly where the dead go. Not as punishment, not as reward, but as returning. The forest doesn't demand belief. It simply waits. And you, having arrived, finally know how to wait with it. You follow the wind. It doesn't rush or pull, only brushes along your jaw like a thread unraveling slowly from the cloak of the world. You descend a narrow trail, where the moss is so thick it silences your footsteps entirely. You are soundless now. Even your breath seems to belong to the forest. Ahead, the trees bend, not as if blown, but as if bowing. You walk beneath them, and something unseen dusts your shoulders. Not leaves, not ash, perhaps memory again. It always returns here, drifting in motes too fine for the living to see. There's a belief held by the Quechua, whispered more than written, that death is not the end of walking. It's simply the moment when the trail stops being made of dirt and begins being made of song. You are on that path now. You come to a small clearing. There is no shrine, No temple, no cross, just a circle of stones. Perfectly spaced, recently disturbed. At the center, something is buried beneath a thin layer of earth, still fresh, still sacred. You kneel, not to dig, but to listen. Your fingers rest on the soil, and it hums. Long ago, before books and clocks, the Inca buried their dead with coca leaves in their mouths to help them speak clearly to the ancestors. And small clay flutes, so that if the journey grew too quiet, they could call out to the stars. You press your ear to the ground, and there it is. A single, soft tone, faint, flute-like, not musical, but hollow and curved, like a child blowing across a reed. Someone beneath the earth is not lost. They are rehearsing. And as you listen, the breeze joins in, through branches, through feather grass, through your ribs. It is not a song, it is a conversation. A ritual once common in the sacred valleys involved planting the bones of the dead at specific energetic spots on the mountain. The idea wasn't burial, it was germination. The soul, in this view, would sprout into the spirit world like a vine reaching backward in time. Some traditions suggest these vines were seen only by lamas and children, and that both were considered sacred for that reason. You rise and see the shape of one now. A white llama, barely taller than your chest, stands just past the edge of the trees. Its eyes glisten in the dim light, not startled, not still, just watching. And then it turns. You follow it, of course. Wouldn't you? It leads you through a gap in the rocks, into a narrow pass strung with vines and ancient cloth scraps caught like flags from forgotten prayers. Here the air grows cooler, cleaner. A wind not from the mountain, but from the time before mountains. You remember a dream from years ago, long before death. You were walking in a field of stars, not under them, within them. And someone whispered, "This is where the seeds go." That same whisper brushes your ear now. You emerge into another glade. This one is more open, with a fire pit long cold, surrounded by 3 stones painted red, black, and gold. Offerings litter the edges, broken combs, a sandal, the dried skin of a fruit you can't name. Odd, tender, left behind not out of logic, but love. One story from the Andes tells of a boy who died in a village with no priest, no burial rite. His grandmother, too poor for cloth, too old to dig, wrapped him in a blanket and laid him in a cave, then left beside him her only possession, a wooden spoon. She said, "So he never eats alone." And every year since, the villagers bring their own spoons to leave at the mouth of the cave. You find a small wooden spoon now, resting between 2 roots. You pick it up. Not to take it, but to feel the story pressed into the grain. It's warm. Scholars still debate whether these burial tokens were meant for literal use in the afterlife or symbolic reminders for the living left behind. But standing here, spoon in hand, you feel neither theory is enough. You place the spoon back down. It is sacred not because of belief, but because of memory. And memory, in this place, is the strongest form of presence. The llama bleats gently. You turn. It's already gone. You continue walking, not chasing now, but carrying the quiet as if it were a bowl filled to the rim. You find yourself beneath a canopy so dense the world turns green. A gentle rain begins to fall, though the leaves take most of it, letting only single drops through, like slow applause for something long overdue. You raise your hands, not in surrender, but in gratitude. Everything here is ceremony, and you, silent traveler, are both witness and offering. You pause beside a mossy wall where handprints stain the stone, not painted, not carved, just pressed. As though someone, long ago, leaned into the earth to leave behind a final sigh. You add yours, flesh against rock, palm to palm. And though the stone doesn't move, something in the air shifts. Maybe you'll grow into it. Maybe this is how the spirit begins to settle, like mist curling into a crack, soft but inevitable. You continue on, and the forest folds behind you like a page gently turned. The earth slopes downward again, and you follow without hesitation. There's a rhythm to it now, a lullaby paced by your steps, your breath, the soft echo of rain on leaves overhead. You walk not as a guest, but as something slowly being remembered by the forest itself. Ahead, a river appears, narrow, glassy, barely moving. No sound but its presence. It's one of those waters that doesn't flow. It waits. You kneel beside it and look down. Your reflection doesn't greet you. Instead, you see a memory. A small fire burning in a mountain hut, an old woman singing low and slow beside it. Not a melody you know, but one that causes your eyes to sting gently. You don't remember the words, but your bones do. It's a river song, one sung to the newly departed, guiding them gently across the vales. Among the Andean Quechua, it's believed that rivers hold thresholds between life and the next world. Some traditions suggest that the dead must speak the river's name to cross it, yet the name changes with the wind. Only those who've listened carefully in life will remember it in death. You lean closer. A word forms on your tongue. You speak it aloud, not loudly, not as a challenge, just a breath, shaped into meaning. The river shimmers, not parting, not rising, but recognizing you. You step in. It's cold, but not cruel. The water clings to your skin like a mother reluctant to let go. Each step deeper softens the noise of your thoughts, until only one thing remains: stillness. And then, on the far bank, you see it. A rock formation shaped like a face, not carved, but natural, and yet unmistakably human. A guardian. In the Andes, these are known as huacas, sacred rocks believed to house spirits who watch over the land. Some were protectors, others were mourners. This one seems to be waiting for you. You emerge from the river, dripping, lighter somehow. The face in the stone watches with a gentleness you can feel even with your back turned. You begin to walk again, and the trail becomes sandier, brighter. The forest thins, revealing ancient terraces where crops once grew, spiraling up the hills like fingerprints of the ancestors. You walk their grooves now, each step aligned with stories you've never heard but somehow understand. The Inca believed that souls could linger in such places: spiral farms, stone fountains, stairways with no destination, not trapped, not lost, just waiting. Scholars still debate whether these souls chose to stay or simply never found the doorway out. You pass a stone stairway that climbs nowhere, just ends in the air. A perch, maybe, or a launching place. Near it, a small jar sits, covered in wax, half buried. You brush away the dirt. The wax is marked with a fingerprint, not yours, not fresh. You open the jar. Inside, ashes, white cloth, and a dried flower. You replace the lid carefully. Some traditions say that every soul leaves behind one object it cannot carry. Not because it's forgotten, but because it's loved too much to take. You leave the jar where it was. You don't need to carry someone else's memory. You've got enough of your own. The light deepens, not darkens, just settles, like dust on old books. The sun, filtered through mist, casts gold across the steps ahead. You reach a bend in the trail and turn. And stop. Because there's someone there. Sitting cross-legged beside a stone fire ring. A figure in a cloak made of reed and sky, back turned, humming softly. The humming stops. They speak without turning. You're later than most. Their voice is not old or young, not male or female, just voice. You don't speak. They gesture beside them. You sit. There's no fire in the ring, but warmth radiates from the earth. I waited here once, the figure says, but no one came, so I became the one who waits. You nod. Inca myths often speak of spirit doubles, those who died and were not mourned properly, so they linger in liminal places to guide others, not as punishment, as purpose. Some traditions suggest that these guides grow more human over time, shaped by the souls they help. You glance sideways. Their face isn't stone, but it holds the same stillness. You don't have to speak, they say, almost smiling. You've done enough of that. The sky overhead thickens with dusk. Together, you and the figure sit in the hush of mountain wind and moss. A condor circles above, and the path behind you begins to disappear. Not erasing, just folding, like a chapter closing itself. The figure rises beside you. No rustle of cloth, no creak of joints, just presence shifting. They walk ahead, not quickly, not beckoning, but you follow, because the path beneath your feet now feels like a promise you've made long ago. The stone steps grow narrower, then vanish. Now it's just earth and root and breath, and the air becomes thinner, not from lack of oxygen, but from fullness of memory. The trees part. Before you lies an open plateau veiled in fog. Dozens of standing stones circle its edge, some as tall as you, others no larger than a child's satchel, but all of them hum. Not with sound, but with memory, the kind that brushes just behind the eyes. Your guide stops at the edge of the ring. These are not graves, they say gently. They're listening posts. You step closer. The stones are carved with nothing. No names, no faces, no stories. And yet they feel more alive than anything you've passed. Some traditions suggest the Inca believed that true names were too sacred to be etched. That memory, if pure, should echo through time without needing to be told. You kneel before one stone, and your forehead brushes its surface. A heartbeat. Not yours, not the stone's. Something older. A mother, a father, a weaver, a lost child. They remember you, or maybe you remember them. Your breath catches, because you suddenly know why the boredom of death exists, not as punishment, not as silence, but as a long pause where memory returns. Some spirits forget because remembering hurts. Others wait because forgetting would mean they never existed. Your guide places a hand on your shoulder. You've seen enough, they whisper. Now choose. The fog thickens. You rise, and from the circle of stones, a gap opens, a staircase winding downward, not into darkness, but into soft amber light, like candlelight, like honey, like stories passed between old friends. You take the first step, and then another. The staircase is lined with carvings, faces not of gods, but of guardians. Their eyes are closed, but their smiles are real. Somewhere, a flute plays. A melody familiar in the bones, though you've never heard it before. Down and down and down. And at the bottom, finally, a doorway, circular, made of stone and earth and whisper. You press your palm to it. It melts, not crumbles, and you step through. You emerge in a garden, lush, wet, breathing. Every leaf leans toward you like an old friend. And there, at the center, a stone table, empty, except for a single white cloth. You sit before it. And the guide, your guide, sits across from you. They reach into their robe and remove a bowl. Inside, water, still and moonlit. Drink, they say. You lift the bowl. It's weightless. You sip. And suddenly, you remember everything you'd forgotten. The laugh of your grandmother as she shelled beans. The first night sky you ever noticed. The weight of your own name when whispered by someone who truly saw you. The stone garden blurs, because your eyes fill with light, not tears. You've returned to the place before names, before form, before fear. You set the bowl down and smile, because you understand. Now the boredom is not boredom. It is the stillness before the great music. It is the silence between lifetimes. And this garden? This is where the forest keeps the souls who are ready to rest. Not disappear, just rest, until they are needed again, until someone whispers their name beneath a full moon, until a reed flute calls them back. The figure stands, and so do you. They do not follow, because now it is your turn to stay a while, to become the one who waits. Not forever, just until someone like you comes walking again. Wind brushes your cheek, the leaves rustle with joy, and the garden sings. And now, as the final hush falls over the garden, you let go. Not of self, but of effort. The forest folds gently around your breath. Stones sleep with you. And in this stillness, nothing is missing. No sorrow, no need. Only the knowing that you are home, and always were. Sleep softly now. Let the silence carry you. Let the warmth keep you. For tonight, you are not searching. You are found. You are remembered. And you are enough.